appreciate you doing this. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. So our podcast is about your journey in music and how you got to where you are now.
Cool.
So I did read originally from New York. Are you still there? Are you born and raised there?
I wasn't born and raised in New York.
Oh, you weren't?
I'm originally from Jersey.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I've lived in New York for 20 years.
Okay. Maybe
So,
that's
I
where
mean,
I'm
if you
reading.
want to accept me now, I don't know what to tell you. Just punch him in the face.
Right. Well, tell me about growing up in Jersey then.
It's not as exciting as living in New York.
It's not New York.
It's not New York, no.
Okay. Well, tell me about what about getting into music or big music scene where you grew up?
Yes and no. I started playing when I was very young, but in a completely different setting. It's kind of like the Hindu equivalent to, learning how to play when you're in church.
Okay.
So it wasn't like a scene-oriented thing. I wasn't very hip when I was 6, so I studied classical Indian music because my parents had wanted me to do that. And as a teenager, yeah, I mean, there was always a hardcore scene. I grew up very close to Trenton, which is the home of City Gardens.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was definitely there, but also I was a teenager in like the early to mid 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So music was everything at that point. I mean,
Sure.
I did not know anyone who didn't listen to something. It was such a big deal. It was like 24 hours because there was just so much happening at the time. Even if I was young, we were still exposed to a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really cool. Actually, I have really good memories of that. So yeah.
What was the first instrument you learned to play? You said you were learning, about your cultural and the Hindu music and stuff. Like, tell me about. Did you play an instrument, sing?
Yeah, you have to play either a harmonium or a tambura to make the drum, and you have to learn how to sing, which is like an instrument in that regard because when they start you out, all you're doing is scales.
Okay.
Just so much fun for a kid. But I'm grateful now thinking back on it because it's not very difficult for me to pick up pitch, but I think it's because I had to learn how to sing scales.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when you're a kid, you just want to watch cartoons and play outside. You don't want to do
Scales.
you don't want to do scales. I also learned how to play piano when I was young. Too.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah,
Did you do like recitals or anything?
Oh yeah.
Tell me about some of your first performances, recitals. Those piano recitals.
Yeah, you have to get up and I mean, I was terrified. I was a very, very shy kid.
Mm-hmm.
But I think part of why my parents wanted me to do performance stuff was to get over it,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was horrible. I mean, I remember having a recital and just crying in the middle of it. I was one of those kids. I was really hard. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, then how did you start writing music? Like, when did you start performing with bands?
I didn't really start writing my own stuff until I was in my early 20s.
Oh, okay.
It took me a while to put things together.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that was even an option.
Sure.
I had ambitions of just being someone in the back playing keyboards. That was my oh, I want to join a band. I'll play keyboards or something in the background somewhere.
Okay.
So I just didn't even think about being in the front or writing songs or any of that stuff until you would hang out and people would start jamming, and then I realized that I didn't really like what I was hearing back. And I know that's a really snotty thing to say, but it's also, I think it triggered a part of like my brain to be like, I think I might be able to do something better than that. But
sure.
That's what it kind of, I don't know. There were stones were jamming, who knows?
Was that like in high school that you started kind of putting that together?
No, it wasn't until
later?
I was in college. Yeah.
Oh, in college. Yeah. Okay. And after witnessing that and kind of, deciding, I think I could do this. When is that when you kind of started? Like, when did you start writing music, and when did you start playing in a band?
I actually started off solo.
Okay.
I had a it wasn't really easy to be in bands the time I was young because it was very male dominated, more so than it is now.
Hmm.
And just wasn't you couldn't just like be like, "Can I join your band?" Like with a bunch of guys, it was just not going to work. That was just not what they were looking at you for. So
Sure.
that was a really hard thing to kind of maneuver around. But when I moved to the city, I noticed that there were a lot more females in projects, and it wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't something that was so strange. And
Hmm.
I'm talking early 2000s. I
Hmm.
mean, early 2000s was a pretty chauvinistic time.
Sure.
It was. I don't
Yeah.
You watch a movie from like the oddies, you're just blown away by how much things have progressed
Oh
since
my
then.
gosh, yeah, it's
Yeah.
weird. Like my
Yeah.
son was watching a movie, I forgot what it was, but I think it was made in like the early 90s. And I'm like, "What are you watching?" And it was like rated PG. And some of the
Mhm.
stuff they would say and get away, I'm like, "Whoa."
Yeah,
But
you
it's
couldn't say anything
no,
like
no,
that
not
now
anymore.
without like a Twitter war.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, hashtag against you pretty soon.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, it was very broy. It just was. And so it was difficult to form a band, but it was also difficult to be a band leader at
mhm.
that point too. I mean, I walk into a room like even till this day, people are like, "Are you the merch girl?" And I'm like, "Sure, I do. I do that too."
Yeah, I
But it
can.
isn't like they don't look at me and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's her." You know, she does. She's the band leader. She's the arranger. She's the songwriter. It just doesn't happen that way. So maybe that'll change. Uh, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just the way it is.
That's interesting. And so with that first what well then how did you end up getting in a band? You said it was difficult. You couldn't just walk up to people and kind of ask. Did you have to start something on
Slowly
your
things.
own and kind of pull
Yeah,
people in?
I was playing on my own,
Okay.
and I was going to the Sidewalk Cafe, which is where a lot of songwriters share their work, or used to. It's no longer there,
Okay.
and it's a place where Jeffrey Lewis got a start. So did Adam Green and Kimya Dawson. So it's a very caring, healthy, safe environment,
Like a
and
singer-songwriter type place?
Mhm.
Okay, cool.
And I would just haul my harmonium over the Williamsburg Bridge and play my songs every week. And it was amazing because you had so many peers. You're competing with yourself in terms of songwriting, but you were learning so much from other songwriters. It was great. I had a
Mhm.
great time doing that. For sure, yeah.
That's cool. And that's kind of where you got your dipped your toe into like the performing like aspect of it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
would you get like feedback there or kind of just
Yeah,
play song?
definitely.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It was very encouraging. And then from there, I started forming a band. And then that was a total disaster. And I had to basically like I was just hitting the ground running at that point. I know it's
Mhm.
not that happy. My story's not that happy. I'm just warning you. I know I'm like, keep it light, Shilpa. Just keep it light. Yeah, it totally it didn't work. And there was a lot of problems. And from there, I tried again, and I've sort of just been changing lineups ever since. So
Okay.
it's been like a cast of characters for sure.
Okay. So the band was that what were you guys called? The Hookers?
There was the first band I was in,
Oh, the Happy Hookers. And her Happy
right.
Hook. Okay.
Prior to that, I had a band called Beat the Devil,
Okay.
and then it was Happy Hookers, and then I was told never name your backing band or else they get really possessive, and then it became Shilpa Ray. But I've always been the principal songwriter. I don't collaborate with people or have co-writes or anything like that.
Oh, sure. It's all just been you, and then you would just, like you said, have different people come
Yeah,
in as
it's me
players.
and my very, very dumb mistakes.
Okay. All right. So from that first band, you said that didn't work out, and then you went
Mhm.
back solo?
Yeah, well, in a way, I think I was always solo. I was
Always
always
solo?
doing my thing, and either it worked out with other people or it didn't work out with other people. So
Okay.
that's, you know.
Yeah. Would you say like the happy hookers were the most like stable group of people that were kind of with you, or were those people still changing in and out as well?
That had a lot of changes. Even when I changed the title, the reason why I had changed to just my name was because it was rotating so much
Oh, interesting.
that it was just pointless to have a name for anything, because there was just so much issues with ownership and also with listening and taking direction from me.
Mm-hmm.
But I needed to, from my own perspective, I had to hold on to what I needed to do in order to complete my vision. So that's always been the fight, you know,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
which is, I think, a lot of bands face this, regardless of whether they're in a band setting or a solo artist setting.
Sure.
There's always issues with songwriting credits and
Mm-hmm.
also how money is divided and things like that.
Yeah, I
So,
could
yeah,
I could imagine that getting messy.
it is very messy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially if you're the sole songwriter and then there's people that want to play on the record, and yeah, I can
yeah.
imagine. Um
Everything's a problem for sure.
so with okay, let's talk about Teenage and Torture. Was that the first record that you put out yourself, or was that the first record that you've put out? I mean, I guess it kind of gets confusing with like the different bands, but was that a record that you wrote and just put out under your own name, or was that first put out under the Happy Hookers? Like, what was the
Oh,
first record
well,
you
before
released?
that, there was an album called The Fish Hook and Open Eye, which is a Happy Hookers album as well,
Okay.
with completely different band members than Teenage and Torture. I just thought it was a funny name to have. I went in a really innocent, thinking nothing of it, you know.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, the politicking and also in the industry, how people treat you in terms of decision making and stuff, it changes. This was also like 2008 till 2011,
Hmm.
and it was very much a man's world. I mean, there was a lot of issues with people just coming up to me and, as you know, discussing things that I had to make decisions on. You know, they would just look at one of the guys in the band and that was it. Like, I didn't even exist. It didn't even matter if my name was on it or not.
Oh,
So
weird. Okay.
yeah, well, that's what it's like when you're a woman.
No, I know. It's just it's
Yeah.
crazy to me. I'm just like blown away by like, wow.
Yeah, and you think about it, it's like 10 years, you're talking about 9, 10 years ago.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
That's what's
that's
even
how
more
it
like mind blowing.
was. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, well, okay. So with the first record you released, was that put out on a label? Was that all done independently?
No, that was done independently. Fish Hook and Open Eye was done independently. That was DIY.
Okay.
And then the second album after that was under Knitting Factory Records, which is the same people who do Partisan, that label.
Okay. And how did
And
you meet them and get them to put the record out?
just from being around town, they were all working in New York, and I was in New York, and they were like, "I like your stuff," and that's how it goes. Yeah.
Okay, sure. And were you doing like with when you put the album out, were you touring on it? Like what was the first opportunity you had to tour?
I the first opportunity I had to tour was when I was still doing Beat the Devil
Okay.
and had done regional touring and also did one all over the country, which was really difficult. I mean, because I had no experience doing it, and we were very, very poor, and that was really hard. But we were young, and we survived, you know?
Sure.
Yeah. And since then, I've been touring ever since, but not as much as I used to, because now I'm like, tour smarter, not harder.
Yeah, that's good. And I did read that you recently toured with like Nick Cave, and we got to play with him, which is
Yeah, that was great.
insane.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I'll talk to you about that in a minute. With Teenage Torture, what was like the milestone of that record? Like, what would you say? Like putting that album out on the label, was it different than the DIY album you
Yes,
did?
it was. It was way more fleshed out. I was not the producer on that album, which was, I think, the only record that I hadn't produced myself
Oh,
or
wow.
had that part in it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was cool because I learned a lot, because I was working with someone who was really amazing, and I would just sit, and I'm always the last person standing, in terms of listening back and thinking about things. And I just learned a lot from that process. And
Mm-hmm.
then when I had made last year's Savage, which was the full length that came afterwards, I was on the helm production wise, and I definitely used a lot of what I learned on that in order to make that next record work.
Mm-hmm. And
So yeah, it was really good. I learned a lot for sure. Yeah.
with that second, well, with last year's Savage, did you work with the same producer on that
Yeah.
second time? Oh no, you just took
Yeah.
what you learned from that
That was
session.
mostly DIY. So I was just saving up money and going into a studio and working on this record. And yeah, that was really wild too, because it was me and an engineer, and it was just figuring out how to put ideas into fruition, like how to take something from A to B, uh, even like how to pan something. Or when you say, I want it to sound like this track, you listen to the track, and then you have to realize or analyze where everything is and why the track sounds the way it does. And that was really
Mm-hmm.
cool too. I love
Yeah.
that side of things. I love the production part for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, kind of breaking down each element of the song and figuring
Yeah.
out. Yeah, that's cool. And with last year Savage was also what technically your first solo album, right?
Yeah, I guess it's the first one that's just my name.
Okay. And with and with that, was it different? Did you tour on that record solo,
Yeah.
or was it different? Coming out
No,
as just you, or similar, same?
no, it was a four-piece. We toured a lot on that album actually, and that was the first time I had gone to Europe with a band, because prior to that, I played with Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds
Mm-hmm.
in Europe, but I was performing solo. So the first time I went to Europe, I was just doing these solo gigs, opening for Nick Cave.
Wow.
And I know, oh my God, I know. It's like I'm in an arena. I have no business being there.
Wow. Okay, real quick, tell me about that. How did you get that tour? And tell me about playing a big arena.
That tour came about. He and I met through a mutual friend in 2010. I did a couple dates with Grinder Man solo, and he had always liked my performances solo. So at first, he had asked me to sing backing vocals for the leg in the States for Push the Sky Away.
Wow.
And I did that with Sharon Van Etten, who was opening the shows at the time.
Okay.
And then in Europe, he just asked if I wanted to open the shows. And I said, yeah. And it was awesome, but it was wild. I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot. It was a lot. It was incredibly scary being up there by myself in an arena where nobody cares, and they're just waiting for Nick Cave.
Oh my gosh. Like, tell me about walking out to those crowds for the first time. Was it
Oh my
just
God,
like,
with my harmonium, which nobody even knew what it was. And it was so weird. It was very polarized. They either loved it or they booed me off the stage.
Did they really? That's mean.
I got booed off the stage twice on that tour.
What
And
cities? Do you remember?
I love that. And thinking back, I think it's hysterically funny because it's like, yeah, you just paid like, I don't know how many euros for a ticket. And there's this girl you don't know. She's playing this harmonium, singing her weird songs. You're just waiting for like, you know, the bad tunes to come on. But yeah, the first time I got booed off, I was in Manchester, which is very typical of Manchester. That's just like Manchester.
Okay. That wasn't as shocking.
Oh my God. It was hysterically funny. Someone was like, I sounded like a strangled cat. That was a review. I love that. I was like, yes. And the second time I got booed off was in Belgium. And that was like, I think the biggest of the arenas. The interesting part about that is I played in Belgium again with my band, and one of the bartenders came up to me after the set and he's like, I have a confession to make. I'm really sorry I booed you off the stage. You're awesome. And I'm like, I know.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I thought that was really sweet.
That is funny.
Yeah,
it's like, like you said, you're paying this money to come. You're gonna go out of your way to just boo the person opening. Like, give me a break.
I don't know. I mean, people are what they are. I mean, it's just part of it. It's a lot of ups and downs for sure. In this industry, it's gonna be like that. Yeah.
The next album you put out was Door Girl.
Yes.
Tell me about that record.
That one was like so easy. I just knew exactly what I wanted. My band was tight. Went into the studio, just banged it out in a week, and it was just so quick. Everything was quick. It took probably 3 weeks to make that record. It was really fast.
What about just touring? Were you touring it as hard as you did the previous album?
No, not so much, because the reception wasn't what I had hoped for. It was, I think with last year's Savage, the reception was a lot more. And then 2 years later, with that album, it just wasn't happening at the time. Mm-hmm. And the thing about releasing and press cycles and things like that, I mean, you don't want to think about that, but the reality is, if it's not lined up on the day of the release, it's not happening. It's not going to push forward or push through. Mm-hmm. And that's part of what it's like in the industry. But now I keep getting, oh my God, that record changed my life, for 4 years afterwards. But when it first came out, it was just like, oh no, what am I going to do?
It's interesting how some things are like that. I've talked to other artists that have said that. They'll be like, oh yeah, that record, was a flop, but you'll talk to some of our really good, fans will swear by that's their favorite album that we've ever done or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it's a total crapshoot. You just don't know if someone's gonna pick up on it immediately or not, or what the temperature is. And also the way I think a lot of popular music has been going isn't rock and roll. It just doesn't have that vibe to it. So
yeah, not anymore, right?
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I mean, that doesn't mean you quit. That's for sure. I mean, you don't stop doing what you do, and there's still avenues to get through it and get things done. That's for sure. But yeah, it was just one of those records. When it came out, it was just like crickets chirping.
Oh, that's too bad. So, okay, well, that record, as far as the internet tells me, it comes out in 2017. Where were you? Like, were you working on a record? What happened? Where were you when the world kind of hit a pandemic and COVID shut down everything?
I was supposed to be in a studio finishing mixes for the next
The
record.
new record, okay.
Yeah. So that couldn't happen. But I've been remote mixing the album, and it's almost finished. I'm not putting it out this year. I mean, it's the end of the year anyway at this point.
Right.
But I've just been doing things a little more differently. I think with failure in terms of the reception of something also comes a lot of independence on like how you want to market something or how you want to bring something into the world. So I've been definitely reevaluating how I want things done
Mm-hmm.
in that regard. So patience is a good thing.
That's good.
Yeah.
So you have all the songs recorded or no, not
Oh
quite
yeah,
yet?
it's done.
Okay, everything's
It's
done.
done. We're
Okay.
at the final mixing stages. Some of it's been mastered because I've been releasing singles with
Mm-hmm.
videos.
Yeah, you've got a couple out so far, right?
Yes.
Cool.
And that's been fun.
Yeah.
Things like that, like that's a good time. It's like that's why I make music is so I can make projects like this. Someone just walked
Yeah, don't worry about
it. But that's what it's about, you know. It shouldn't be about you know, crying over reviews or being bummed out because you didn't get like, you know, a pat on the back or whatever. It's always should be about entertaining the people who really want to listen to it, which are
Mhm.
your fans. So yeah.
Mhm. So well, with the videos and stuff, were those things like, were you able to shoot that what after, like during everything being locked down, and kind of something that you were able to get creative that way?
Yeah, because the first one is a found footage
Hmm.
video. So I had teamed up with Amos Poe, who is a legendary Noe filmmaker based out of New York. And he put that together with his team. And it just, you know, it was fun. It was so much fun discussing what should be done and sharing ideas with it. It was such a pleasure to work on, and that was the same kind of deal with Heteronormative Horseshit Blues.
Oh,
Uh,
the same person directed both videos.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay. I was confused there for a second. Oh, I wasn't aware of
yeah.
that. Okay,
It's the
cool.
same person. And that was also something I had put together a small crew to do the for shooting me.
Hmm.
And then Amos and his team did the backgrounds and the editing and gave it a storyline and stuff. But it was done separately because of the CDC
Sure.
rules at the time. Yep.
Oh, wow. Was that
Yeah.
kind of cool to do it that way? Weird? Like, how do you feel about it?
You know, I think when you're a creative person, you just have to remind yourself to be creative. So we were problem solving.
There you go.
I
Uh,
mean, it also controls like how my ideas run, which is like huge. Like I think too broad, and it's good to take a visual medium and slim it down. Uh, there's, you know, when I did Nocturnal Emissions and Morning Terror's Nights of Dread, those
mhm.
are larger budgets, and to do something that still looks great but at a smaller budget is also a challenge too, and it's also like good to know how to do that. So
Definitely,
yeah.
definitely. That's awesome. Well, what about okay, putting the songs out as far as like videos and stuff? Have you gone on like live on Instagram? Are you doing any of that or no?
Yeah, I did some streams.
Okay.
Well, those are fun and terrifying for sure. I mean, anything can go wrong. Anything can go wrong. But I've had some good luck with that. That's been fun. I'm doing another one that's being taped
Hmm.
beforehand, which is it's good. But also I get to play with other people, which is really awesome too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it breaks the solo thing. So that's been fun. It's been fun going into the rehearsal space and playing and having a drummer again and doing stuff
Yeah.
that way.
being able to play loud and
yeah.
I can imagine the acoustic
loud.
guitar gets pretty boring after a while. Oh, well, Shilpa, thank you so much for talking with me today. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me. Yeah.
Of course. I do have one more question. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Oh man, this one. That's a hard one. I mean, I don't know anybody who'd want to get advice from me. I really.
What do you mean?
I don't know. I mean, you should ask like Angel Olsen or something. Just never compromise. Never compromise. That I've said that before, I'm sure. I just feel like a parrot when I say these things, but people are going to say all sorts of things. That's just the way it goes. You're going to get some good criticism. You're going to get some bad ones. People are going to probably write that they wish that your tour van rolled over and that you died. I've gotten that one before. But it doesn't matter. All that matters is you enjoy what you're doing and it's true to you, and you should stick with that.